Ladies and gentlemen, champions in the making, let me ask you something bold right out the gate. Are you tired of watching other people win while you feel like you're stuck in neutral? Are you tired of giving your energy away to everyone and everything and having nothing left for you? Good. That's the wake-up call. That's the sign. Because today, something shifts. The world doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you are. It's a principle that most people overlook, yet it quietly governs every result we experience. We live in a time where people are obsessed with getting money, attention, respect, recognition, success. But wanting alone is never enough. The gap between desire and reality isn't bridged by wishes, it's bridged by identity. You don't attract what you fantasize about, you attract what you consistently embody. And until you become the kind of person who aligns with what you desire, that desire will stay locked behind a door you're not holding the key to. People say they want wealth but carry the mindset of scarcity. They say they want love but don't love themselves. They crave freedom yet live in habits that keep them bound. You can say all the right things, post all the right quotes, even visualize the lifestyle you want. But the truth is, the universe responds not to your words, but to your essence. It responds to what you tolerate, how you think, what you do when no one's watching, and how you treat yourself and others on the daily. In other words, you'll never rise above your internal standard, no matter how high your external goals may be. Your current life is a mirror. Every relationship, every opportunity, every setback, every win, it's all feedback. It's showing you who you are being in this season. If you're consistently overlooked, undervalued, or stagnant, it might not be because you're unlucky. It might be because you're out of alignment. Wanting more while being less creates tension. That tension doesn't get resolved by demanding more from the world. It gets resolved by upgrading yourself until you are more. We have to understand that results flow to identity. Identity shapes behavior, and behavior compounds into outcomes. That's why two people can go after the same goal, same plan, same effort, but one skyrockets and the other fizzles out. The difference isn't always skill or luck. The difference is who they believe they are deep down. One person sees themselves as a champion, a leader, a creator of their own destiny. The other sees themselves as someone trying to prove something. And the world, every single time, bends toward the one who walks in full embodiment of their power. If you want to change your life, stop trying to manipulate the world and start transforming yourself. Not just your wardrobe or your words, but your values, your vision, your discipline, and your self-worth. Become the kind of person who earns what you desire. That means becoming consistent instead of emotional, focused instead of distracted, hungry instead of hesitant. The more deeply rooted you are in that evolved version of yourself, the more naturally the things you once chased start showing up for you because you've become a match for them. Every level of success requires a new version of you. Not a fake version, not a copy of someone else, but an elevated, clarified, powerful version of you. And you don't get there through shortcuts. You get there by making daily choices that reflect who you want to be, not just what you want to have. Success isn't something you stumble into. It's something you grow into. You must build the capacity to hold what you're asking for. That's why self-work isn't optional. It's essential. Because the more you expand who you are, the more your world expands with you. Doors that once seemed locked begin to open, not because the lock changed, but because you did. The value you bring, the energy you radiate, the problems you solve, all of it elevates as you elevate. Your outer reality will always catch up to your inner evolution. But that evolution requires real work, the kind of work most people avoid while hoping for shortcuts. You can manifest all day long, affirm all night long, but if your daily behavior contradicts your desired outcome, you'll remain stuck. The energy you carry is louder than the words you say. You're not just communicating with the world through language. You're communicating through action, belief, and self-esteem. That's why it's not about what you want. It's about what you're willing to become. The world is always watching, and it responds every single time to who you are, not who you pretend to be. Stop chasing people and start building you. It sounds simple, even obvious, But most people are so caught up in trying to be accepted, validated, or liked that they forget to ask one powerful question: who am I becoming? Every time you shift your energy toward chasing someone's approval, you abandon a piece of yourself. You dilute your identity just to fit into someone else's version of success, beauty, or worthiness. And in doing so, you lose sight of what truly matters: your growth, your purpose, your potential. There's something inherently exhausting about trying to be everything for everyone. You compromise your boundaries, you mute your voice, and you start making decisions based on fear. Fear of being alone, fear of not being chosen, fear of missing out. But here's the truth: anyone who truly sees your value will never need to be convinced. When you chase people, you're saying their presence is more valuable than your peace. And that's a dangerous place to operate from, because it places your worth in someone else's hands. The reality is, the more you chase, the less you build. And the less you build, the less you have to stand on. You can't build a solid life while your foundation is constantly shifting based on who's around or who likes you this week. Growth requires stability. It requires focus. And it requires a refusal to water yourself down to gain shallow attention from people who were never meant to be in your inner circle in the first place. Not everyone has the eyes to see your potential, and that's okay. Your job isn't to convince them. Your job is to become it. When you redirect your energy inward toward building your skills, healing your wounds, mastering your mindset, sharpening your discipline, you become someone who doesn't need to chase. Why? Because you are the magnet. You become someone whose presence speaks louder than their words, whose confidence isn't loud but deeply rooted, whose self-respect sets a standard. People are drawn to power, not the power that screams, but the power that's undeniable because it's real, it's earned, and it's lived. Building yourself is the long game, but it's also the only game that truly pays off. Because when you invest in yourself, you create value. And value doesn't beg, it attracts. You stop wondering why people are overlooking you, and you start understanding that not everyone is supposed to recognize a masterpiece in progress. What matters is that you see it, that you're committed to the process, that you're more focused on your purpose than someone's inconsistent interest or temporary attention. The most dangerous thing you can do is wait for someone to choose you before you start choosing yourself. You waste years waiting for love, support, partnership, opportunity, when you could be using that time to sharpen every tool in your box. Every time you level up, the world responds. Better connections, deeper relationships, higher opportunities, stronger boundaries. They all flow from your decision to stop chasing and start becoming. People respect what you've built. They gravitate to the glow that comes from real self-work. But you have to give yourself permission to be your own first priority. You weren't put on this earth to convince people of your worth. You were put here to live it. That means being willing to outgrow old spaces, let go of people who don't align, and silence the noise of approval long enough to hear your own voice. It means replacing the need to be liked with the decision to be aligned. It means asking yourself every single day, am I becoming the version of me that I'm proud of? If the answer is no, then it's time to shift. Not your circle, not your image, but your habits and your mindset. Every minute you spend chasing people is a minute not spent building you. And that time adds up. Sooner or later, you'll look around and realize that the people you were running after weren't running toward anything real. They were distractions. And while you were chasing them, your future was waiting for you to turn around and catch up to you. Because that's who the world responds to. The person who stopped chasing and started rising. You can't demand excellence from the world if you're accepting mediocrity from yourself. It's one of those truths that stings a little when you hear it, but only because deep down you know it's real. We live in a culture that's quick to point fingers, blaming the system, blaming circumstances, blaming people for not seeing our value. But the hard question we often avoid is this: am I actually giving the world my best, or am I just hoping for greatness while showing up with average effort and below average discipline? You can't expect people to treat you with respect when you keep disrespecting your own goals. Skipping the gym, ignoring your budget, procrastinating on your dreams, breaking promises to yourself. Those are forms of self-sabotage, not self-respect. And whether you admit it or not, people can sense that energy. You might say all the right things on the surface, but if your life is full of inconsistency behind the scenes, the results will always reflect that. Excellence isn't about what you say you want. It's about what you're willing to show up for consistently, even when it's inconvenient. People admire consistency. The world rewards those who show up, not those who talk about showing up. You can't walk around expecting elite treatment while giving subpar effort. You can't demand abundance when you're still clinging to lazy habits, half-hearted routines, and excuses dressed up as reasons. Life isn't unfair, it's just brutally honest. It reflects back to you exactly what you pour into it. If you bring effort, you get results. If you bring excuses, you stay stuck. It's not about perfection, it's about standard. Standards shape everything. If your standard is to only work hard when you feel like it, don't be surprised when your results are average. If your standard is to only push when someone is watching, don't be shocked when your growth plateaus. Excellence doesn't happen by accident. It's a lifestyle, not a moment, and that lifestyle begins the day you stop negotiating with your weaknesses and start holding yourself accountable like your future depends on it, because it does. There's a gap between where you are and where you want to be, and that gap is filled with decisions, not dreams, not luck, decisions, daily ones. What you eat, how you move, what you prioritize, how you manage your time, how you talk to yourself, what you tolerate from others. Every one of those decisions is a vote for the kind of life you're building. And if those decisions are rooted in mediocrity, no amount of wishing will produce excellence. You get what you consistently choose, not what you occasionally want. You can tell a lot about a person by what they settle for. If you settle for chaos, you'll never have peace. If you settle for shortcuts, you'll never build true success. If you settle for toxic relationships, you'll never experience love at the level you deserve. Excellence requires that you stop settling in every area of your life, not just professionally, but personally, spiritually, mentally, because you can't compartmentalize greatness. The way you do one thing always bleeds into how you do everything. Self-respect is the root of excellence. When you truly respect yourself, you don't need external pressure to rise. You wake up with purpose. You operate with discipline, not emotion. You train your mind to keep going even when your body wants to quit. That's the mindset of someone who understands that excellence isn't just about the outcome, it's about the process. It's about what you're building within yourself day after day in silence before the results even show up. The uncomfortable truth is that the world mirrors you. If you operate with excellence, the world begins to reflect that back. People treat you different. Opportunities find you. Respect is given, not because you asked for it, but because you earned it through who you've become. But none of that happens if you're still accepting mediocrity from yourself while expecting greatness from everyone and everything around you. You want to level up your life? Then level up your habits, mindset, and standards. That's the foundation most people overlook. They chase new results without changing the behaviors and beliefs that created their current situation. It's like planting the same seeds and expecting a different harvest. You can't evolve externally if you refuse to grow internally. The life you want isn't hiding from you. It's waiting on the version of you who's disciplined enough to sustain it. Habits are your daily vote for the kind of future you're building. You don't rise to the level of your potential. You fall to the level of your systems. If your habits are rooted in comfort, distraction, and inconsistency, you'll always be stuck in cycles of almost successful, almost ready, almost there. But almost doesn't move the needle. Real elevation begins when you commit to routines that stretch you, sharpen you, and demand more from you. The small, invisible decisions you make every day eventually become the visible difference between success and stagnation. Mindset is the lens through which you see everything. If you view life through the filter of fear, limitation, or lack, you'll interpret every challenge as a threat instead of an opportunity. But when your mindset is rooted in growth, you begin to see problems as feedback, failure as fuel, and rejection as redirection. You stop crumbling under pressure and start rising through it. And that shift That's the difference between people who stay stuck and people who break through. You can't build a new life with the same thinking that created the old one. Standards are what you allow and what you refuse to tolerate. They dictate the quality of your relationships, your work, your health, your goals, everything. If you have low standards, you'll surround yourself with low vibration energy and low effort behavior. If your standards are high, you start demanding excellence, not just from others, but from yourself first. You start cleaning up your environment, your inner dialogue, your discipline, and soon life starts to mirror that elevation, because life doesn't give you what you deserve, it gives you what you tolerate. It's easy to talk about wanting more. Anyone can dream big, but it's the person who changes their habits, sharpens their mindset, and raises their standards who actually experiences more. Wanting alone is weak fuel. It fizzles out the moment things get hard. But when you decide that the old you isn't welcome in the new season, when you draw a line in the sand and say, I'm done playing small, that's when transformation begins. Not because it's easy, but because it's alive. Alignment means your actions match your ambition. You say you want a better body, your habits need to reflect that. You say you want a healthier relationship with money, your mindset needs to reflect that. You say you want peace, but you still tolerate chaos, your standards need to reflect that. Every area of your life speaks, and it's speaking right now loudly, not in words, but in outcome. And those outcomes are shaped by the choices you repeat, the beliefs you reinforce, and the standards you enforce. When you level up your habits, you're telling your future, I'm preparing for you. When you level up your mindset, you're telling your past, you don't define me anymore. When you level up your standards, you're telling your present, I expect more because I'm becoming more. And that shift is powerful. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop hoping and start building. You stop settling and start rising. Everything starts moving because you started moving. Most people don't lack potential. They lack structure. They lack clarity. They lack the willingness to be uncomfortable long enough to see results. But discomfort is part of the process. You can't grow without resistance. You can't rise without pressure. And you definitely can't level up your life while holding on to the habits, thoughts, and environments that keep you average. The moment you raise your habits, your mindset, and your standard, everything begins to change around you, because everything begins to change within you. You can't build a championship life with a recreational mindset. That's the truth most people don't want to hear, because it forces them to confront how casually they've been approaching goals that require intensity, focus, and sacrifice. Everyone wants the result, but few want to live the lifestyle that creates the result. A championship life doesn't happen because you occasionally show up when you feel inspired. It's built in the moments when no one is clapping, when the cameras are off, and when the work is hard and repetitive. The recreational mindset is built on convenience. It's the mindset that says, I'll do it when I feel like it. It waits for the perfect moment, the right mood, or external motivation. But the people who win in life don't wait. They decide. They get up when it's uncomfortable. They stay consistent when it's boring, and they follow through when everyone else would rather quit, because they understand that greatness is earned, not given. You don't get to live like a champion with the same mindset that treats your goals like a hobby. A hobby mindset produces hobby results. If you train like it's optional, you'll live like it's optional. And when life hits, and it always does, you'll crumble because you never built the internal foundation required to sustain anything higher than average. Championship lives are built through pressure, repetition, discipline, and clarity. You don't accidentally get there. You don't drift into legacy. You fight your way into it by refusing to think like the crowd and choosing to think like a leader, a builder, a finisher. There's a difference between being busy and being committed. A recreational mindset stays busy. It checks boxes, makes lists, talks about dreams, and posts motivational quotes. But commitment means you keep showing up when the hype wears off. It means you get strategic, not emotional. You do the work when it's cold, when it's quiet, when it's lonely. That's where the separation happens. That's where the champions start to pull away from the pack, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Championship lives require championship habits. It's not about intensity once a week. It's about discipline every day. It's about waking up with intention, knowing what you're building, and refusing to allow distractions to rob you of destiny. Most people get stuck because they haven't upgraded their mindset to match their ambition. They want first place rewards with last place preparation. But life doesn't work that way. You have to earn your way up. And that climb starts in your thinking long before it shows up in your results. When you're building something great, fun can't be the metric. Progress is. Champions don't train based on how they feel. They train based on where they're going. A recreational mindset seeks comfort. It tries to squeeze success into the gaps between entertainment and procrastination. But a championship mindset builds structure. It rearranges everything around the mission. It's not about being robotic. It's about being relentless. It's about knowing that the cost of playing small is far greater than the cost of doing the work. If you look at the people who have built extraordinary lives, you'll see one thing in common: obsession, not with status or applause, but with mastery, with growth, with legacy. They aren't trying to fit it in. They've built their world around it. And that's what separates them. The world watches the result and calls it talent, luck, or opportunity. But what they don't see is the mindset that made it all possible, the mindset that refused to treat purpose like a pastime. That's the shift. The moment you stop treating your goals like a side project and start treating them like your mission, everything changes. Your time becomes sacred, your decisions become sharper, your focus becomes laser tight, and slowly, brick by brick, you start building something worthy of being called a championship life. Not because it happened overnight, but because you made a decision to stop thinking like a spectator and start thinking like the one who owns the arena. Focus on your growth and you'll start outgrowing your problems. Most people spend their lives trying to fix what's around them when the real transformation happens by fixing what's within them. Problems are often not the problem. It's who we are when we face them. If you're constantly battling the same issues, financial stress, toxic relationships, procrastination, self-doubt, it's not a sign that the world is against you. It's a sign that you've reached a limit in your mindset, your habits, or your perspective. And until you grow past that level, you'll keep experiencing the same cycles in different forms. Growth doesn't eliminate problems. It changes your relationship with them. What used to shake you now teaches you. What used to confuse you now sharpens you. As you grow, you start seeing patterns, not just pain. You start catching yourself in real time, choosing better responses, creating stronger boundaries, and approaching challenges with clarity instead of chaos. You realize that most of what once felt overwhelming was only overwhelming because you hadn't yet become the version of you who could handle it with grace and strength. You can't change your life without changing your capacity. Your ability to handle pressure, make decisions, and navigate uncertainty is directly tied to the level you've grown to. And the good news? Growth is available every single day. It's in the books you read, the people you surround yourself with, the habits you repeat, the thoughts you choose to entertain. You either grow through life or you shrink through it. The difference is in your willingness to evolve when staying the same feels easier. When you focus on growth, you begin to take radical ownership. You stop blaming, stop waiting, stop hoping for something to magically shift. Instead, you shift yourself. You start asking better questions. What can I learn from this? What version of me is required to solve this? What am I still holding on to that's holding me back? That level of self-awareness doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you unstoppable, because now you're no longer reacting to life, you're shaping it. Problems lose their power when you grow bigger than them. Not because they disappear, but because you've elevated your thinking. What used to trigger you no longer touches you. What used to drain you now teaches you. You realize that pressure is not punishment, it's a signal that you're on the edge of a breakthrough. And instead of retreating, you lean in because you understand that the only way out is through. And growth is the fuel that keeps you moving forward when everything in you wants to shut down. Growth demands that you stop identifying with your limitations. You're not your past, your pain, or your patterns. You're the person who has the power to rewire all of that, but only if you commit to the process. Growth isn't glamorous. It's uncomfortable. inconvenient, and often quiet. No applause, no immediate payoff, just you doing the inner work that most people avoid. And that's exactly why it leads to a life most people never experience, because you earn the results in private long before they're celebrated in public. You start attracting differently when you grow. The old circles no longer fit. The old habits feel foreign. The old doubts begin to fade, not because they never show up, but because you've grown strong enough to silence them. Growth gives you access to peace, to power, to purpose. And once you taste that level of internal alignment, you no longer crave external validation. You no longer chase surface level success. You focused on becoming. And from that place, everything changes. Growth is the quiet revolution. It doesn't shout, but it shifts. It doesn't demand, but it dominates. And the more you lean into it, the more your problems begin to shrink. Not because life becomes easy, but because you've become equipped. Stronger mind, clearer vision, higher standards. And that version of you, that version doesn't just survive, they build. Focus on your value and opportunities will find you. Most people are out here chasing opportunities, knocking on every door, begging for a seat at the table, when in reality, what they need to be doing is building themselves into someone that opportunities can't ignore. Value doesn't chase, it attracts. The more valuable you become in your thinking, your skill set, your energy, and your execution, the more life begins to rearrange itself to meet you where you are. That's not magic, that's alignment. Value isn't just about what you know, it's about how you show up. It's in your consistency, your character, your creativity. When you develop yourself to the point where you're not just filling space, but shifting atmospheres, people notice. Even if they don't say it, you walk different, you speak with clarity, you solve problems instead of complaining about them. That's the kind of energy that opens doors. And not just any doors, the right ones. The ones that match your capacity, not your desperation. When you make value your focus, you stop worrying about competition. You're not looking to be better than others. You're focused on becoming better than who you were yesterday. You refine your craft. You develop your emotional intelligence. You sharpen your perspective. You show up with solutions. Because you understand that value creates its own gravity. It pulls people, platforms, and possibilities toward you without needing to scream for attention. People don't pay for potential, they pay for results. And the only way to deliver consistent results is to become the kind of person who brings excellence to everything they touch. That starts by mastering the invisible things, your discipline, your attention to detail, your mindset under pressure, your ability to lead yourself. These are the traits that elevate you, because the truth is, no one can steal what's built into you. When you're rooted in value, you don't have to fight for what's already aligned with your growth. Opportunities are attracted to clarity. If you don't know your value, why should anyone else? You've got to get clear on what you bring to the table. What problem do you solve? What energy do you carry? What transformation happens when you walk in the room? That's not ego, it's awareness. And once you develop that awareness, you stop chasing validation and start walking in purpose. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to impress, but because you're too focused on impact to even think about approval. Value is built in the dark, in the hours no one sees, and the consistency no one claps for. It's developed through patience, pressure, and persistence. It's in how you handle setbacks, how you learn from mistakes, how you evolve when most people would quit. And over time, that inner work starts to produce outer opportunities, the kind you didn't beg for, the kind that show up because you become the person who can handle them, multiply them, and make the most of them. People think they need to be discovered, but the truth is you need to be prepared. Opportunities don't go to the loudest, they go to the most aligned. And when your value is real, when your growth is deep, when your standards are high, you don't need to push your way into rooms. You become the room. You create your own space, your own lane, and eventually those who once overlooked you will come looking, not because you changed for them, but because you changed for you. So the question isn't where are the opportunities? The real question is, what are you doing every day to make yourself undeniable? Because when you shift your focus from chasing to becoming, everything around you begins to shift too. You don't need to control everything. You just need to control you. This is one of the most liberating truths that many people overlook. We get so caught up in trying to control circumstances, people, and outcomes, believing that if we could just manage everything around us, we'd be happy, successful, or at peace. But here's the reality. Life is unpredictable. People are unpredictable. The only thing you can truly control is how you respond, how you show up, and how you move through the world. Trying to control everything outside of you is an exhausting and futile endeavor. You'll never have full control over how others behave, how events unfold, or how the world operates. Life will always throw curveballs, and trying to dictate the course of everything will only lead to frustration and burnout. But when you shift your focus inward, when you put your energy into mastering yourself, that's where true power lies. The power to remain grounded when things go wrong, the power to adapt when things don't go according to plan, the power to choose your response instead of reacting out of fear or frustration. Controlling yourself starts with understanding who you are and what you stand for. It's about knowing your values, your triggers, your strengths, and your weaknesses. When you have this self-awareness, you stop being a slave to your emotions, your impulses, and your external circumstances. You stop being swept away by every wave of negativity, drama, or challenge that comes your way. Instead, you rise above because you've already done the inner work to stay anchored in who you are, no matter what's happening around you. Self-restraint doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or ignoring what's going on in the world. It means recognizing that you are the one in charge of how you engage with life. You don't need to let every setback derail your progress. You don't need to let other people's opinions dictate your worth. You don't need to allow circumstances to control your peace of mind. Instead, you choose how you respond. You choose to stay calm when chaos surrounds you. You choose to move forward even when the path seems unclear. You control how you show up, and that makes all the difference. The beauty of controlling yourself is that it doesn't require anyone else's permission. You don't need external validation, approval, or agreement. You don't need to wait for the world to align for you to take action. Your power is in the choices you make every single day. Do you choose to take responsibility for your life? Or do you let things happen to you? Do you choose to stay disciplined and focused, or do you give in to distraction? The more control you take over yourself, the less power circumstances have over you. When you control yourself, you become the source of your own strength. You stop relying on external forces to determine your happiness, success, or peace of mind. You don't need the world to change for you to feel fulfilled. Your peace comes from within, and that's where your true power lies. You become resilient because you know that no matter what happens around you, you have the ability to rise, adapt, and keep moving forward with purpose. Mastering yourself also means developing a level of emotional intelligence that allows you to navigate the ups and downs of life without losing your center. It means recognizing that you can't always control how you feel, but you can control how you respond to those feelings. Instead of being controlled by anger, fear, or frustration, you choose to process those emotions constructively. Instead of reacting impulsively, you take a step back, reflect, and then respond with intention. The freedom that comes from controlling yourself is unparalleled. It allows you to walk through life with confidence, knowing that no matter what happens, you have the tools to handle it. It gives you the strength to face challenges head on, the wisdom to make better decisions, and the clarity to stay focused on what truly matters. When you stop trying to control everything around you and focus solely on controlling yourself, you unlock a level of peace and power that nothing external can ever take away. Become the person you've been waiting for. For too long, we live in the future, hoping that one day circumstances will align and we will suddenly be the version of ourselves that we've always dreamed of. We wait for the right opportunity, the perfect moment, or the right set of conditions to arrive before we take action. But here's the truth. The person you're waiting for is not coming from the outside. They already exist inside of you. All you need to do is step into that version of yourself and start living in alignment with who you are meant to be. We wait for the perfect external change, but we fail to recognize that change begins internally. You won't become the person you're capable of being by simply wishing for it. You become that person through the actions you take today, in the choices you make now, and by building the habits that move you closer to your highest self. Every time you delay action, every time you allow fear or doubt to control you, you are actively pushing away the very future you desire. But once you decide that you are ready right now to step into your fullest potential, everything begins to shift. The person you've been waiting for is someone who takes responsibility. The key to unlocking your greatness lies in no longer blaming your circumstances or anyone else for your situation. You stop being a victim of your story and become the hero who rises above. The person you've been waiting for doesn't wait for permission to act. They don't wait for someone to tell them they're ready. They take ownership of their decisions, their life, and their destiny. They decide that now is the time to be the best version of themselves, and they act on it every single day. To become the person you've been waiting for, you must be willing to embrace discomfort. Growth doesn't happen when you're in your comfort zone. It's in the challenges, the failures, the moments when you feel like giving up that you grow the most. The person you're waiting for doesn't shy away from these moments. They lean into them, knowing that on the other side of discomfort lies the breakthrough. They are willing to face adversity head on because they know that it is through the struggle that they are shaped and strengthened. Becoming the person you've been waiting for also means letting go of excuses. Excuses are the stories you tell yourself to avoid taking action. They are the ways you justify why things aren't happening for you. I'm not ready. I don't have enough time. I'm not good enough. But the truth is, the person you're waiting for doesn't make excuses. They make decisions. They prioritize what matters and take consistent steps toward their goals, even when things are tough. When you stop making excuses and start making progress, that's when you truly begin to transform. The person you've been waiting for isn't perfect. They don't have it all figured out, but they do have a growth mindset. They understand that the path to success is not linear. There will be setbacks, failures, and challenges, but they choose to see them as lessons, not as reasons to quit. They fail forward, learning from their mistakes and applying those lessons to move closer to their goals. Becoming the person you've been waiting for means accepting that imperfection is part of the process and embracing it rather than fearing it. To become the person you've been waiting for, you must start believing in yourself. Self-doubt is the number one enemy of progress. When you doubt your abilities, you hold yourself back from taking action. The person you're waiting for knows that belief in themselves is non-negotiable. They trust their intuition, they believe in their potential, and they act with the confidence that they can handle whatever comes their way. You can't wait for someone else to believe in you. The only belief you need is your own. And once you believe in yourself, you'll find that doors start opening and opportunities begin to align with your growth. You already have everything within you to become the person you've been waiting for. It's not about waiting for the right moment, the right person, or the right opportunity. It's about realizing that you have the power to create the life you desire by becoming the person who is capable of achieving it. Stop waiting for external validation or for circumstances to change. Start becoming the version of yourself who takes action, faces challenges, and keeps moving forward with unwavering confidence. That's how you step into your fullest potential. That's how you become the person you've always been waiting for. Focus on yourself and watch everything fall into place. This is one of the most overlooked pieces of advice in a world that constantly pressures us to look outward. We're taught from a young age to focus on others, to seek approval, and to constantly compare ourselves to the people around us. But the truth is, nothing will truly fall into place until you start focusing on what's inside of you. When you direct your energy inward, everything around you begins to align in ways you couldn't have predicted. The world doesn't work the way we think it does. It works through the lens of you. When you grow, everything around you starts to grow with you. When you focus on yourself, you give yourself permission to evolve. Too many people are stuck waiting for someone else to make the first move or for the perfect moment to arrive. But growth doesn't wait for the right circumstances. It doesn't wait for things to be ideal. Growth starts with you deciding that you're worth the effort. It starts with committing to bettering yourself, not for anyone else, but because you understand that your personal growth is the foundation upon which everything else is built. When you choose to focus on your growth, you unlock the doors to new opportunities. Because the world rewards people who are actively working on becoming better versions of themselves. The power of focusing on yourself lies in the fact that when you improve yourself, everything around you improves. This doesn't mean becoming selfish or narcissistic, but rather becoming intentional with your time, your energy, and your actions. When you invest in your health, your mind, your skills, and your emotional intelligence, you automatically elevate the quality of your life. You attract better people, better opportunities, and better circumstances because the energy you emit has changed. You've become a magnet for the things that align with the best version of who you are. Focusing on yourself also means taking responsibility for your life. You stop playing the victim. You stop waiting for someone to give you permission to live your best life. You start making decisions that serve your long-term happiness and success, not just short-term comfort. When you focus on yourself, you stop letting external circumstances dictate your emotions. You learn to control your thoughts, your actions, and your reactions, which gives you the power to handle anything that comes your way. The moment you take full responsibility for your life, you step into your own power. As you focus on yourself, you start to recognize and release the things that no longer serve you. This could be toxic relationships, bad habits, limiting beliefs, or negative environments. The more you focus on your growth, the more you begin to see what's holding you back, and the more you let go of those things, the more space you create for positive changes. When you let go of what isn't working, you open yourself up to what is. This can be scary because sometimes the things you need to release have been part of your life for a long time. But when you focus on yourself, you find the strength to make those tough decisions because you know that they are ultimately leading you to a better place. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean isolating yourself from others. It means prioritizing your personal development in such a way that you are able to give more to those around you. When you are the best version of yourself, you show up as a better friend, partner, parent, and colleague. You give from a place of abundance, not scarcity. You give from a place of self-love, not self-sacrifice. The more you focus on your own well-being, the better equipped you are to positively impact the lives of others. You can't pour from an empty cup. And when you focus on yourself, you fill your cup to overflowing. The process of focusing on yourself requires patience and consistency. It's not an overnight transformation. It's not about having one great day or making one big decision. It's about daily, intentional actions that align with who you want to become. It's about waking up every day and choosing to do something that brings you closer to your goals, whether it's reading a book, meditating, exercising, or learning something new. Over time, these small actions add up to a massive transformation. And the more you focus on making progress, even if it's incremental, the more you'll start to see the bigger picture take shape. When you focus on yourself, you stop waiting for external validation. You stop seeking approval from others and start finding your worth within. You stop comparing yourself to others because you understand that your journey is unique. You know that you're exactly where you need to be, and that as long as you keep moving forward, you will eventually reach your destination. You no longer look outside for answers or confirmation because you've learned to trust yourself. The more you cultivate self-trust, the more you'll realize that the key to your success has always been within you. When you focus on yourself, you not only change your life, you change the world around you.